WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. This week, a sweeping new plan that could transform development in Charlotte went into effect. It's called the Unified Development Ordinance, or the UDO, and it is a massive 600-page document that looks to streamline the city's future development by combining things like housing rules and stormwater requirements into one single document. And there's a lot to cover here. Coming up, we're going to dig into the years of planning that went into the document, and later, why some say changes are still needed. But first, joining us now is the Director of Planning for the City of Charlotte, Alyson Craig. It is a daunting job in a city that's growing quite like Charlotte. Alyson, thanks for coming on Flashpoint.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today. Excited
to have you. So we have a lot to talk about. The UDO is a complicated idea that I feel like TV news doesn't always do the best job of describing. So hopefully we'll have a good time sort of laying it out and what it means. I want to start though with a piece of news that might happen in the next few days. On Monday, your team is expected to already present some changes to the UDO that City Council wanted, specifically around duplexes and triplexes. Now, the UDO states that they can be built in any neighborhood, barring some sort of HOA rule or covenant. And supporters were really sort of upset that Council a few weeks ago backtracked. What is your team considering at this point going into next week?
So I don't have anything to share this morning on that, but what I will say is that the referral was pretty specific for large projects in large subdivisions, and so I don't think that it's completely backtracking. It's really looking at a very specific type of development.
So for people who supported the UDO in its current form, you don't think that you're not expecting to make some huge compromise here that would sort of change the essence of it?
No, I mean, I very firmly believe that allowing general density and light touch density, duplexes and triplexes, and infill development in our community is absolutely essential to the challenges of affordability and housing supply that we have here in Charlotte.
That brings me to my next point. When folks ask me about this, and ask me because I'm the newsman, what the UDO is, and I even struggle with it, but I've sort of said it's a way, it's many things, but it's a way to sort of have managed smart growth and added density in the city of Charlotte, hopefully making it more affordable to live in. Granted, depending on your lens, whether you're a developer or things like that, it's different. But is that a fair sort of broad stroke?
Sure, that's a great description. And I think it's always challenging trying to explain a regulatory document. I think a media outlet earlier this week called it boring. And while reading 600 pages of regulatory language might not keep you on the edge of your seat, it is really important as it governs what and where and how development can occur in our community.
And it's very impactful. I mean, it really has a huge impact on people's day-to-day lives going forward. In the long term, do you think, I know you have said that you see this as a living, breathing document. Where do you see, or do you see yet room for growth and change moving forward?
I just want everyone to know that this is intended to be a nimble document. We know it's not perfect, but it is a massive, huge stride forward for the city of Charlotte in managing growth, as well as making sure that the people that are living here today feel included in the growth that's coming. So I'm sure that we will have some updates along the way. I'm sure we'll find some places where it's confusing. We need to provide some clarification. In fact, Council already adopted a cleanup text amendment that we proposed that really was just making things easier to understand and administer. But we also know, too, that things are changing. We have new plans underway. There's going to be an anti-displacement strategy that's brought forward to Council Committee on Monday. Maybe changes occur because of that. So, and there may be new market ideas that come that will influence future changes. So, I mean, it will be a living document, but for the first time ever in the city's history, we have one set of documents that are guiding growth and development when we haven't really had that before.
I was going to say, I think to help understand how important this is and how impactful it is, contrast it to what it used to be in the last several years and why that was difficult.
So I've worked in many, many cities, both on the planner side as well as on the developer side. And when I came to Charlotte, I found it very confusing to understand what you could do or what might be built next to you, because we lacked a comprehensive vision. Our ordinances were written in different stages over the last 30 years and different documents, often conflicting. And so for the first time, we have a unified vision and a unified development ordinance to really help guide our growth and have both residents as well as developers understand what we're wanting to see in the community.
So far, in seeing a week of media coverage, what do you think is the biggest misconception about this thing?
There's probably a couple, that there'll be duplexes and triplexes everywhere. That's really not true. Many cities allow, what I've referred to as gentle density or light touch density, and really haven't seen like large, huge changes. It's incremental changes, but it's also recognizing that not everyone can or wants to live in a single family home, and not everyone can or wants to live in an apartment building. In the last 25 years, we have built very, very little that's in between those two. And it's really important that we have those options for people. But I don't think that suddenly everywhere there's going to be a duplex or a triplex. And we have some studies done that, kind of give us some preliminary numbers. I think the other thing that I hear a lot is that suddenly things will be so much easier for developers and growth will be rampant, or that this new ordinance is so cumbersome that all the developers will leave. And I really think we spent the last 9 months trying to find a balance and making it easier to build the right projects in the right places, while also requiring a greater investment from the developer in things that really enhance and protect our community.
You mentioned developers right then. Leading up to this change 2 days ago, did you see a last-minute rush of developers wanting to get in before the deadline, or did that not really ever be a thing?
We did. We saw a rush, both in the rezoning cases as well as in the permit applications. I mean, people, they know what they know, and this is new. And so it's not that they didn't want to develop under the UDO. In fact, there's a number of people that have been waiting to submit until the UDO was in effect. But people are accustomed to what they've been working with for years. And so, yes, we saw an uptick in applications on the 31st.
And to your point, when you talk about duplexes and triplexes, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but for people who think this is a newfangled idea, you could point them to any of Charlotte's historic neighborhoods, whether it's Dilworth, Myers Park, Cherry, Elizabeth, Plaza Midwest, and they have them all.
Yes, even on the street that I live in, there's quadruplexes, triplexes, duplexes all around, and they're just a part of the fabric of our community. And I think it's really important that, I live in a single family home today, but I might not always want to, and I'd like to not necessarily leave my neighborhood if I want to change the type of house I want to live in.
And talk about concerns about gentrification when it comes to this. You talked about displaced people earlier. How does the UDO address that in what is a growing city?
So one of the things we did specifically to duplexes and triplexes, because I think that became a concern, is that we put in some requirements such that building height had to be relative to what's already in the neighborhood, and that the driveways had to look similar to what you would expect in a single family development pattern to really manage and mitigate changes in the neighborhood. So there's things like that. We're also working very closely with Sean Heath and Rebecca Hefner and Housing and Neighborhood Services as they work towards this anti-displacement strategy. But we also have a number of tools in the UDO that can empower residents to work to either enhance or preserve the character of their community. We've got a neighborhood character overlay, which got really popular at council the other night. But there's another one that's more under the radar called residential infill overlay that's probably a lot easier to administer, a lot easier to accomplish, that has some of the same elements. It's just a little faster. And there's several other types of overlays too, like street side, which is like a new historic district, and a cottage court overlay. So there's different types of tools that we have just to help manage change and protect neighborhood character.
And I know it's all sort of abstract when we talk about it on TV, but folks can go to charlotteudo.org and use some of those tools, put in their address. I've done it myself with my home, and it could give you some of the outlines, and then you've got to look a little bit more. It is, for the average person, might be a little confusing, but you can learn a lot really quickly with some of those tools. And I encourage all the folks at home to do that, and then sort of learn a lot about what this is really and what it means for them. All right, Alyson, thanks for coming on Flashpoint. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, come back soon. More Flashpoint after this.